Hi everyone, and welcome to today's lesson on tree support and lightning protection, a critical topic for any practicing arborist. It's all about protecting trees from structural failure and the destructive force of lightning, and knowing how and when to intervene to prevent damage, injury, or loss. Let's start with tree support systems. These are methods we use when we're concerned that a tree or parts of it might fail due to structural weaknesses. Maybe the tree has codominant stems, a split crotch, or heavy limbs that just can't support their own weight. In any of those situations, support systems can reduce the risk of failure and extend the life of the tree. There are a few different types of support systems we use. The most common one is cabling, which involves installing steel or synthetic cables between limbs to limit their movement and reduce stress. These cables are typically installed high in the canopy and help redistribute the mechanical load. Another method is bracing, which is more rigid. We insert threaded rods through weak unions or cracks in the trunk or limbs to physically hold parts of the tree together. Bracing is often used in combination with cabling when there's already visible damage or risk of splitting. Then we have guying, which you'll usually see with newly planted or recently transplanted trees, or trees in loose or unstable soil. In this case, we anchor the tree to the ground or another fixed point to help stabilize it as it establishes roots. And finally, there's propping, which is just what it sounds like. We provide physical support from beneath a heavy limb, often in older, historic, or culturally significant trees where preservation is key. Now, when it comes to choosing the right support system, it's not a one-size-fits-all decision. We have to evaluate the tree's structure, species, condition, and environment. We're not just thinking about the tree's health, we're also thinking about safety and aesthetics, especially in public or high-use spaces. Let's circle back to cabling for a moment. There are two main types of cabling systems, static and dynamic. Static systems use extra high-strength steel cables. They're strong and don't allow much movement at all. These are great when you want to lock things down tightly. On the other hand, dynamic systems, typically made from synthetic materials, allow a little more natural movement. That can actually encourage the tree to strengthen its own wood, but dynamic systems aren't suitable for every situation. When we install cables, we use hardware like lag hooks or through bolts, depending on the size of the tree and the amount of force we're dealing with. And once a support system is in place, that's not the end of the story. Regular inspection and maintenance are critical. Ideally, cables and bracing should be inspected annually, and always after major storms or high winds. Now let's switch gears and talk about lightning protection systems. Trees, especially tall and isolated ones, are highly vulnerable to lightning strikes. And when lightning hits, the damage can be devastating, splitting the trunk, igniting fires, or killing the tree outright. Sometimes, the strike isn't even obvious until months later when the tree starts to decline. That's where the lightning protection comes in. These systems give lightning a safe, preferred path to the ground, bypassing the tree's conductive tissue. A typical system includes air terminals, also known as lightning rods, installed at the top of the tree. From there, conductors carry the electrical charge down the trunk and finally into grounding rods buried safely in the earth. This system must be designed and installed carefully, and only by trained professionals, in accordance with ANSI A300 Part 4 standards. Trees near homes or other structures, those with high cultural or historical value, or trees in parks and other high-traffic areas are all strong candidates for this kind of protection. So to wrap it up, both support systems and lightning protection are proactive ways to manage risk, extend a tree's lifespan, and ensure safety. But they are also specialized practices that require technical knowledge, careful planning, and ongoing maintenance. If done correctly, they can preserve trees for generations. Alright, that's the overview. Next up, let's take some call-in questions. Alright, caller 1 says, "Hi, I have an old oak with 2 large limbs growing from the same spot. I'm worried about them splitting. What can I do?" Great question. That sounds like a classic case of a weak or codominant union. Installing a cabling system between the limbs can help reduce the risk of failure. A static cable like EHS steel placed in the upper canopy can limit movement and reduce stress. If there's already a crack or visible weakness, bracing rods might also be needed through the union. Caller 2 says, "How often should I inspect the cables in my trees?" Cabling systems should be inspected annually or after severe storms. Trees grow around the hardware, and cables or anchors may loosen or fall over time. A qualified arborist should check the proper tension, hardware integrity, and whether additional support is needed. Caller 3, "I live in an area with lots of thunderstorms. Should I install lightning protection on my pine tree?" If the pine tree is tall, isolated, close to your home, or holds sentimental or historic value, yes, it's a good candidate for a lightning protection system. A system of air terminals, conductors, and ground rods can safely direct lightning strikes into the ground. Just make sure it's installed by a trained arborist familiar with ANSI A300 standards. Alright, it's quiz time. What is the primary purpose of tree cabling? A. Increase leaf production. B. Improve aesthetic symmetry. C. Reduce risk of branch or stem failure. Or D. Promote fruit development. The answer is C. Reduce risk of branch or stem failure. Number 2. Which of the following is not a typical tree support system? A. Bracing. B. Cabling. C. Guying. D. Fertilizing. The answer is D. Fertilizing. When should tree support systems be inspected? A. Every 5 years. B. Once installed, they don't need inspection. C. Annually and after major storms. Or D. Only when visible damage occurs. The answer is C. Annually and after major storms. What is the main function of a lightning protection system in trees? A. To repel insects. B. To increase growth rate. C. To redirect lightning safely into the ground. Or D. To keep birds away. The answer is C. To redirect lightning safely into the ground. What component is installed at the top of a tree in a lightning protection system? A. Ground rod. B. Guy wire. C. Air terminal. Or D. Bracing rod. The answer is C. Air terminal.